The grand ballroom shimmered under the gaze of 1,000 crystal chandeliers, their light fracturing into dazzling patterns across polished marble floors and silk gowns. Waiters, like silent shadows, wove through the city's elite, their faces impassive. Among them was Elara, her uniform stark against the vibrant tapestry of wealth. Her eyes, though weary, missed nothing. She moved with practiced grace, a silent observer in a world that felt light years away from her own. At a central table, a man of formidable presence, Marcus, conversed with Vivienne, his elegant companion. They exuded an effortless authority, symbols of the very opulence Elara served. As Elara approached their table, balancing a tray of champagne flutes, her gaze drifted. Then it snagged. On Vivienne's left hand, amidst a collection of glittering rings, one piece stood out. A sapphire, deep and luminous, set in an intricate silver filigree. Elara's breath hitched. Her hand trembled, the tray tilting precariously. It couldn't be. Her mind screamed in disbelief, yet her heart thrummed with a terrifying certainty. That ring, it was unmistakably her mother's. A torrent of memories, sharp and painful, flooded Elara's mind. She saw her mother, frail and tear-streaked, clutching that very ring in their small, dim apartment. "It's all we have left of your grandmother," her mother had whispered, her voice choked with grief. But then came the coughs, the hospital bills, the relentless gnaw of poverty. Elara remembered the agonizing day, the quiet desperation when her mother, eyes brimming with tears, had made the impossible choice: sell the heirloom, or lose everything. The ring, a symbol of their dwindling dignity, was exchanged for a chance at survival. Now, years later, the fear of speaking out warred with an unyielding need to honor that profound sacrifice. The ballroom's hum faded to a distant drone as Elara's internal struggle reached its peak. Her feet, seemingly independent of her will, moved her forward. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but a quiet strength, born of deep-seated conviction, settled within her. She stopped directly at Marcus and Vivienne's table, her tray forgotten. With a slow, deliberate movement, she extended a trembling finger, pointing not at Vivienne's face, but at the sapphire glowing on her hand. Her voice, though soft, carried an unexpected resonance in the sudden lull. "That ring," she declared, the words unwavering, "it belonged to my mother." A collective gasp rippled through the immediate vicinity. Vivienne's eyes widened, her hand instinctively recoiling as if burned. Marcus, who had been mid-sentence, froze. His jaw tightened, his expression hardening from polite disinterest to a cold, dismissive mask. He barely spared Elara a glance, but his eyes flickered towards the security guard across the room, a silent signal passing between them. The guard, a hulking figure in a dark suit, began to approach. Marcus finally spoke, his tone clipped and authoritative, cutting through the stunned silence. "There must be a mistake," he stated, his voice flat. "This ring is a recent acquisition." Whispers erupted, buzzing like angry bees. Eyes, filled with judgment and contempt, turned towards Elara. The weight of their disdain pressed down, heavy and suffocating. Yet beneath her fear, a spark of defiance still flickered within her, unnoticed by all but perhaps Marcus, whose gaze held a fleeting, unreadable glint. Even as the security guard led Elara away, Marcus, outwardly composed, felt a distinct unease settle within him. He sat in a secluded lounge, the hum of polite chatter from the main ballroom, a distant drone. Vivienne, still beside him, offered a concerned glance, but Marcus merely gave a curt nod, his gaze falling to her hand. The sapphire ring gleamed, a cold, bright spark. A fleeting thought, a shadow of an old business ledger, crossed his mind. Something about his family's past dealings, distant and forgotten. His mind, however, refused to truly dismiss the waitress's desperate claim. Marcus, unable to shake the encounter, found Elara in a discreet office, flanked by a burly security guard. With a dismissive wave, he sent the guard away, the door clicking shut behind them, leaving them in an unexpected silence. He turned to Elara, his voice more direct now, stripped of the earlier event's pretense. "Your name," he stated, "and your mother's." Elara, though vulnerable, met his gaze with quiet conviction, her voice steady as she provided the names, her dignity unwavering. Elara spoke of a life far removed from the opulence surrounding them. She recounted the relentless struggle, her mother's declining health, and the agonizing decision to sell their small home. Her words painted stark, fleeting images in Marcus's mind: an empty fridge, a threadbare coat, a mother's tired but loving eyes. She spoke of quiet suffering, her voice unwavering as she described how the sapphire ring, her mother's last tangible link to her own family, was sold to buy medicine and keep a roof over Elara's head. It was a story of sacrifice, of a love so profound it transcended material value. When Elara finished, a heavy silence filled the small office. Marcus, still processing the raw truth of her words, reached instinctively for his wallet, then his phone. "I can offer you a sum," he began, "for your trouble, or to buy the ring back at a generous price." But Elara, with a respectful yet firm gaze, shook her head. "It's not about money, sir," she stated, her voice resonating with conviction. "It's about what it represents." Marcus paused, his hand hovering, visibly taken aback by her refusal. Days later, in the opulent solitude of his study, Marcus was surrounded by dusty ledgers and historical documents. Elara's story had stirred something deep within him, compelling him to dive into his family's company archives. He meticulously sifted through decades of records, uncovering chilling details of how his ancestors had subtly profited from distressed sales during past economic hardships. A specific transaction, dated decades ago, hinted at the sapphire ring's path, revealing its original owner's desperation, a desperation his family had unwittingly capitalized on. The revelation plunged Marcus into profound internal turmoil. He paced his study, walked the vast grounds of his estate, and spent sleepless nights staring at the ceiling of his gilded bedroom. He questioned the very foundations of his inherited wealth, the systemic injustices that had allowed his family to accumulate their fortune from the misfortune of others. His initial dismissiveness had completely dissolved, replaced by a painful reevaluation of his own values and identity. The weight of his family's legacy pressed down upon him, demanding a reckoning. At her workplace, Elara endured the whispers and curious glances that followed her. Yet she carried herself with quiet strength. Her head remained high, her movements composed. Meanwhile, Marcus, now driven by a powerful resolve, ignored calls from concerned board members and politely dismissed Vivienne's inquiries. He focused solely on his plan, making arrangements. His act of restitution, he decided, must be public and profound, a gesture that would acknowledge the truth and honor Elara's mother, not just her. A few days later, Elara found herself once more in Marcus's office. He looked at her, his demeanor entirely changed. "What is it you truly desire, Elara?" he asked, his voice gentle. She reiterated her stance, her gaze unwavering. "I never sought money, sir, nor even the ring itself. Only acknowledgement that her mother's story mattered, that the sacrifice wasn't forgotten." Her simple, powerful wish resonated deeply within Marcus, cementing his path towards a true, moral redemption. The morning light barely pierced the heavy drapes of Marcus's study, yet he was already at his immense desk. Before him lay a single sheet of paper, his meticulously crafted statement, words chosen not for diplomacy but for truth. His fingers, usually so steady, traced the contours of the sapphire ring, resting beside the document. It was no longer merely an expensive bauble. It was a tangible fragment of a profound human story, a testament to sacrifice and enduring love. Marcus drew a deep, shuddering breath, a moment of quiet resolve settling deep within him. He was ready to face the public, to dismantle a legacy and build something new. The grand hall once again shimmered with the city's elite, but tonight, a different kind of tension hung in the air. A single spotlight found Marcus as he stepped onto the podium, the opulent room falling silent as his gaze swept across the expectant faces. He began to speak, his voice clear and steady, publicly unraveling the true, painful history of the sapphire ring. He recounted Elara's mother's sacrifice, her daughter's courage, and how her unwavering dignity had enlightened him to the suffering often concealed behind unexamined wealth. He spoke of systemic issues, not just personal error. In the front row, Vivienne gasped softly, a subtle shift in her elegant posture, a dawning understanding flickering in her eyes. The crowd murmured, a wave of shock and disbelief rippling through the gilded space. Having delivered his confession, Marcus descended from the podium, his eyes searching the periphery of the stunned crowd until they found Elara. She stood silently, a quiet sentinel at the edge of the assembly, her gaze unwavering. With the entire room's attention fixed upon them, Marcus approached her. His hand, no longer trembling with anticipation, gently took hers, and with a reverence that spoke volumes, he placed the sapphire ring back into her trembling palm. It was a moment of profound, shared silence, born not of awkwardness, but of deep reflection and a nascent understanding of true restitution. Weeks unfolded, and Elara's world shifted, not with the abrupt arrival of riches, but with the quiet, profound restoration of her mother's memory. She wore the sapphire ring now, not on her finger, but on a delicate silver chain, close to her heart, a symbol of honor, a promise kept. Her steps through her neighborhood, through her workplace, carried a new dignity. She was no longer merely a waitress invisible to the powerful. She was a woman who had stood for truth, her head held high, her spirit imbued with a quiet pride that money could never buy. Months later, Marcus's transformation was complete. His inherited wealth and considerable influence were now meticulously redirected. Boardrooms that once debated profit margins now discussed social justice initiatives. He established programs that invested in communities, rebuilding lives from the ground up, not merely collecting accolades. The encounter with Elara had taught him that true redemption lay not in financial transactions, but in humility, purpose, and the active dismantling of systemic inequality. His smile, once guarded, now held a genuine warmth, reflecting a soul finally at peace. News reports chronicled Marcus's new philanthropic ventures, his public stance on ethical wealth echoing through financial circles. Vignettes across the city showed communities benefiting from his redirected investments. New schools rising, affordable housing projects taking shape, job training programs empowering individuals. His profound change had sparked a broader, much-needed conversation about corporate responsibility, proving that one person's moral awakening could indeed create a powerful ripple effect, extending far beyond a single sapphire ring. In the end, Elara and Marcus's lives remained intertwined, not by romance, but by the enduring threads of truth and mutual respect. The sapphire ring, once a symbol of pain and loss, had become a bridge, linking past with future, grief with hope, and despair with profound healing. It represented the enduring power of truth and empathy, proving that true wealth lies not in accumulation, but in the restoration of dignity.